Good morning, everyone. I'm going to serve as a moderator for this first session. My name is Takahashi. I'm from Nihon Keizai Shimbun. So the first speaker of this session is Anwar. He was born in 1947 in Penang. Upon graduation of the University of Malaysia, he became the charismatic leader as the Muslim youth leader, and 1982 he became a politician. He served as Minister of Agriculture, Education, and then Finance Minister, and then from 1993 he became Deputy Prime Minister. So he was a candidate for the Prime Minister. However, the conflict against the response for the Asian currency crisis, he gave up that. And after that, he worked with the Mahathir, and he realized the change of the administration after that. 2022 general election, he came from the leader of the PH, and he became Prime Minister of Malaysia. The reform in Malaysian is called reformacy, and with reformacy he has a great skill in speeches and invasion of Ukraine from Russia, and also the Middle East situation, uncertainty. Under this uncertain world, we would like to hear very much from the Prime Minister Anwar of his insightful vision.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, Ohayo gozaimasu. It gives me great pleasure to join you in this prestigious NIKKEI forum, which has now gone through 30 years or 3 decades of extensive discussions and discourse among capitals of industry, regional leaders, and policymakers. And therefore, I'm delighted to be here. I thank NIKKEI for the invitation, and may I share you some of our concerns. Issue of uncertain world. Because we are living in post-normal times. There's no certainty. There was an issue alluded to the elections in the United States. But even then, whoever wins, whether Biden or Trump, the policy is still uncertain because leaders would decide based on the economic imperative and national interests. And my view has always been that finally sanity should prevail. But for us in the region, as we have alluded to earlier, our focus must be ASEAN cohesiveness, to strengthen ASEAN as a formidable economic force. We have been successful in the last few generations to fortify ASEAN as a peaceful venture with minor issues, and now having to grapple with the Myanmar crisis. But the way forward for ASEAN is to enhance its collaboration in economy and trade and forge greater economic alliance with Japan, Korea, China, Australia, India, meaning the focus on the region. When we started, or when NIKKEI Future began its deliberations, we had about 28% of global GDP. Now we are talking about 35%. And regional issues in Asia are now also primary global concerns. Now, even as much has changed, some constants remain. Global economic challenges and the specter of uncertainty, deep-seated anxieties, reach far beyond borders, and social fabric of nations. We are dealing with new challenges, not only issues of economic disparities, rapid technological change, environmental degradation, and all these challenges are coming at the same time, to the extent that they create and popularize the term simultaneity, everything happening simultaneously. Both the crisis, say Russia-Ukraine, or Israeli-Palestinian aggression, or climate crisis, or civil concerns, all happening simultaneously, that would compel leaders, political and captains of industry, to be alert and equipped to deal with these challenges. Now, rapid technological change and AI technologies hold the promise of immense, unfathomable societal benefits, but may well be a Faustian bargain, raising the specter of widening digital, social, and economic divides. We either seize the opportunity and create this new awareness, more concern about justice and equity, comradeship, friendship, collaboration, which we in ASEAN forged to believe and commit to, or we should be dragged into the old mantra of Cold War conflicts and divisions, hatred and suspicion. We choose a more realistic approach to be able to work together, to be able to engage with all societies and countries, and that would ensure a better future for Asia. That's why these seemingly unsurmountable challenges enjoin us to seek and forge a renewed vision of Asian leadership. The vagaries of the world, increasingly turbulent, and the crosswinds of economic and geopolitical shifts threaten to veer us, of course. But unlike 3 decades ago, today, Asia now possesses the economic weight, strategic capacity, and the collaborative might needed to navigate the challenge, or these challenges. That's why I venture to assert that finally our future rests on our leadership, taking a bold move, considering and working on the strength of our sub-region and region, instead of being dragged by the international conflicts. Yes, we cannot avoid discussing about Russia-Ukraine. We have taken a position. We do not support the invasion of Ukraine, but we want to continue to engage with Russia, notwithstanding the differences. We condemn with the utmost strength the continued colonization and apartheid and genocide in Gaza and Palestine. But we call for ceasefire and peaceful resolution and respecting the two-state solution, because that will ultimately ensure the peace. But notwithstanding all these conflicts, Malaysia, ASEAN, and the region should forge using economic policies, economic fundamentals, economic strength, investments and trade, and as a result, would be able to champion the cause of our citizens and alleviate the living conditions of our people. Because this has been done. I'm not suggesting, therefore, something new, because we have CPTPP, we have Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership, RCEP, and we know that RCEP alone involves nearly a third of the world's exports, population, and GDP, making it the largest trade bloc in the world. As Malaysia appears to assume the chairmanship of ASEAN next year, we are committed to continue championing these ideals. On the economic front, our focus will firstly be on the strengthening of economic cooperation among member states. I reiterate this point because whilst we have been rather successful in maintaining a strong, cohesive force diplomatically, bilateral relations, sub-regional and regional in ASEAN, we need to do much more to work together to enhance our capacity to attract investments and trade and become an important economic regional bloc. And using that to work together with our traditional allies. And Japan is, of course, very important in this regard because one of the first few countries that has helped us to propel our economy through massive investments, trade, particularly in the manufacturing sector from the 70s to the 80s. Recent diversification of global supply chains and FDI flows must create tangible benefits. Secondly, we aim to enhance our economic cooperation with our partners from across the globe, extending beyond Asia, because, as you know, whilst there is an increase in trade among the region, Japan, Korea, China, Australia, but cumulatively, United States remain our largest investment, largest country that have placed so much importance in terms of trade and investments. And now, among the European countries, you have seen growing investments from Netherlands, Germany, and France. So it is self-evident that policymaking in the 2020s and beyond cannot be divorced from careful considerations of circumstances around three global megatrends: geopolitics, digitalization, and climate change. That's why we have unveiled policy frameworks in this regard. Our Malaysia Madani framework outlines strategies to drive sustainable and inclusive development. At the core is the importance of not just raising the ceiling for real GDP growth in the range of 5 to 5.6% per annum, but also raising the floor. First quarter this year we achieved 4.2, which is quite remarkable in the climate of stagnation and sluggishness in the world economy. So we align closely with Prime Minister Kishida's new form of capitalism policy, underscoring the deep connection and shared aspirations between Malaysia and Japan. The second major policy that we have introduced there is the new Industrial Master Plan, which represents whole of government approach to industrial policy. And this I must commend the collaboration with Japanese companies, including strategic sectors such as semiconductors and steel. Finally, the National Energy Transition Roadmap, Malaysia's comprehensive strategy to ensure that the country meets its commitment to achieving net zero emissions as early as 2050. This warrants that we operationalize initiatives in energy efficiency, renewable energy, hydrogen, green infrastructure, carbon capture, utilization, and storage to build Malaysia's climate resistance. And again, I must comment, in my session, in the briefing last night, I'm meeting captains of industry from Japan who have placed major interest in having Malaysia as a hub in this regard. So these strategic blueprints are indicative of Malaysia's role in building Asian leadership in the economic, digital, and sustainability. Uncertainty abroad has only solidified our resolve. So we take a more optimistic view. People talk about crises, unending, unprecedented, expressing their concern about what's happening in the United States towards the end of the year. But we take a more optimistic view. And we have seen the ingenuity of our people, our professionals, our industry to overcome this, but using our regional, sub-regional, and regional strength instead of being too particularly disturbed and obsessed by developments abroad, which we have limited capability to try and resolve. Malaysia accepts that we are an emerging economy, relatively smaller country. We are, of course, determined to express our views, frankly, openly, as an independent country. But we understand that these are somewhat unsurmountable, not easy to resolve, but it would not stop us from focusing on the economy, trade, and investments, notwithstanding the differences I've alluded to. No. We give an example, for example, the vibrant semiconductor industry, which fortifies our role as a reliable regional partner in manufacturing, trade, and innovation. We have a robust and mature manufacturing base, especially in the global electronics and electrical industry, being the world's 6th largest exporter of semiconductors. Now, as tensions are brewing elsewhere, especially with the imposition of trade restrictions getting more intense in microchips, investors across the world are looking for a safe haven. And we welcome, Malaysia welcome investments. And that's why I say we have problems, of course. We want, if possible, the issue, contentious conflicts between China and United States to be resolved. When I was attending the APEC meeting in San Francisco in front of President Biden and President Xi Jinping, I said, we welcome. The meeting is something commendable and we welcome. That's the maximum we can do. But then, notwithstanding the continued differences, we have an advantage. The German foreign policy says they de-risk from the experience of the Russian invasion of Ukraine to not to be over-dependent of China. So they are looking for safe haven midway, and they've chosen Malaysia. So I believe Japan would do likewise. I dare say that Malaysia fits the bill, thanks to our stability, skilled labor force, and our economic and geopolitical non-alignment, or fierce neutrality. The proof is in the numbers. In 2023, the state of Penang, incidentally where I come from, Malaysia's semiconductor hub, attracted $13 billion in FDI, exceeding the total for the previous 7 years combined. We are setting our sights on the future through an increasing strategic focus on front-end activities, such as water fabrication, the design of integrated circuits, and advanced packaging. Now, truth be told, this could not have been achieved without Japan and our other partners in the region. Etched in our memory is the humble beginnings in Penang during the 1970s, when companies such as Clarion and Hitachi were part of the 8 Samurai. There is the first wave of E&E manufacturing investments into the country. Active Japanese FDI has been a crucial factor in the success of Malaysia's semiconductor industry, and this is true even today with recent large-scale investments coming in from Kaga Electronics and Ferrotech. As the world's foremost Islamic finance hub and center for halal trade, Malaysia has consolidated its position as the top Islamic economy for the 9th consecutive year, serving significantly as a bridge between East Asia and the Middle East and North Africa. Malaysia's openness to trade and investments, the manufacturing, services, and the primary sector alike is reflected in its FDI performance last year, during which the country successfully attracted 188 billion ringgit in approved foreign investments, a 15% increase compared to 2022. Now, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, last year, Prime Minister Kishida and I had 2 summit meetings in November and December, culminating in the upgrading our bilateral relationship to a comprehensive strategic partnership. We also expanded our cooperation into the realm of security, collaborating in the maritime security sphere. Japan and Malaysia share a common vision for Asia's future based on stability, connectivity, and cooperation in support of rules-based order. In reflecting about the state of the region and the world, I am drawn to a quote from Okakura Kakuzo, the Book of Tea. The art of life lies, brilliant statement. According to certain reliable sources, accounts, Kakuzo's concept of dust in the world, sane, being in the wilderness, as expressed in this phenomenal book, published in 1906, had actually inspired the great German philosopher Martin Heidegger's magnum opus, Sein und Sich, Being and Time, which was published only in 1927. Remember, Kakuzo in 1906, Heidegger 1927. Although Heidegger did not allude to the quote or reference to Kakuzo. Considered to be among the most influential philosophers of the 20th century, Heidegger, of course, has never mentioned or attributed this huge intellectual debt to Kakuzo in his Book of Tea. So I digress a bit. But the point about Kakuzo's quote here is that the art of leadership and governance demands that we adapt to the shifting dynamics of global economic, political, social, and cultural forces of our time. Towards this end, Malaysia will remain dedicated to fostering shared growth, bolstering regional cooperation, and maintaining our openness to trade, development, and commerce. Arigatou gozaimasu. You sit here? Okay. All right.
Having said that, when it comes to political stability, geopolitical stability, always the basis for the economic development. So I would like to ask you one question, Prime Minister Anwar. I think you have visited Qatar for international conference, and you mentioned you met the Hamas leaders. So the current Gaza situation, from your perspective, what is your understanding about the Gaza situation?
Well, the Gaza situation happens to be humanitarian crisis of an unprecedented scale. Let us view this in this context. Never mind the differences in terms of ideology, of bilateral relations with any state. But can we, in this period and age, condone and keep a blind eye towards massive atrocities we can go on discussing what happened on the 7th of October, but do not erase 7 decades from the period of the Nakba, of dispossession, of land being taken, houses being demolished, and people being killed. So that is why I've asserted in the speech that we go for a peaceful resolution, support the position taken by the neighbors, Muslim countries and the international community, force both parties to attain peace, then accept a two-state solution. But what is critical now is stop the killings of children, women. And I find great difficulty. I must state this, that people can talk about a political crisis and be blinded by the fact that daily you see children, women, civilians, hospitals, schools, mosques and churches being destroyed. And we hardly committed or have the courage to say anything. So I must thank Prime Minister Kishida and the Japanese government. At least now, you call for cessation of hostilities and ceasefire. You increase humanitarian assistance to Gaza and the Palestinian cause. That is the human character and compassion is present. So that's all that we are calling. Even in the issue of Russia and Ukraine, we have to engage. To the criticisms that, Anwar, why did you meet Hamas leaders? I'm asking you, why did you meet Mandela those days? He was a terrorist, called by the apartheid leaders. But by the Africans, they call him a national hero. Now, the world calls him a national hero. But those days, remember, the West called him a terrorist. The IRA were all terrorists. So, we may have differences in that, but engage. What did I do with the Hamas leaders? Yes, I know them. I've known them for decades. There's no reason why I should not meet them. But when I met them, what did I say? I said, please respect the decision of your neighboring countries and try to secure peace, return hostages in exchange for the prisoners in Israel, and accept a two-state solution. Is that an offense? Did I promote terror? No. Did I recognize violence? No. I appeal because I have an advantage. What is my advantage? I know them. And they consider me a friend. A duty as a friend is to convey what is best in the interest of the Palestinians to secure a peaceful resolution. Arigatou gozaimasu.
Thank you very much. So as for Gaza, especially for the Biden administration, even for the Americans, they criticize what they are doing. So now moving on to the America, what do you think of the American attitude towards that problem?
Well, you can see right now there is seismic shift within the United States. You see the students uprising or calling for justice and compassion, reminiscence of what happened during the Vietnam War. So it's just not monolithic United States, because there you can see the seismic shift. You can see intense debate. So I think it's a new beginning, but it's unfortunate that the United States is not using all its might, influence, and resources to call for an end to the killings. I mean, that's all that we're asking. They may be a supporter of Israel. That's not my concern. That's their decision. But we just say, look, how can you condone this genocide or apartheid or ethnic cleansing? And how you deny that when the whole world can see entire city being completely devastated, hospitals, churches, mosques. So that's all that we want the international community. And I think in this regard, I must say that Japan has now consistently, in their vote in the United Nations, recognition of the state, in their call for end to the conflict, and in the support for humanitarian crises, is an important departure from a more sort of guarded policy in the past. So I certainly welcome that.
Thank you, Your Excellency. So U.S. have not utilized its influential power to the most, and that I think is a very important point. From the Asia's perspective, U.S. and also China on the other side, there are conflicts, and it's at the forefront of these conflicts. So in terms of the large continent, the competition, severe competition between U.S. and China, Malaysia and ASEAN, how do you need to establish yourself a position, and what will be some approaches that you need to take?
The States has been our traditional ally from the beginning, from the time we achieved our independence in 1957. And I have said cumulatively it is still the largest investor and trading partner in Malaysia. And now, until today, they continue to be very aggressive in the promotion of their investments. All the big players in the United States are welcome. At the same time, we recognize there is a growing economically and militarily of China and its important neighbor. I do not share this China phobia policy. Whilst I maintain excellent relations with the United States, Japan, Korea, I think for Malaysia, for the region, it is better to continue to engage with China. Our hope is that China, United States can resolve its differences, and United States do not remain to be too protective and respect competitiveness, but that's for their leaders and policy makers to decide. But for us, at least, we say we will continue to engage and consider the United States as an important ally, and at the same time enhance our collaboration with China, who is an important neighbor, too close, too important, too strategic to ignore. So I think that is the position. Well, they talk about South China Sea, they talk about some other issues of concern. Yes, but we use aggregate forums. We have differences with the United States, but it does not necessarily mean that we should sever our relations. In the same manner with China, with South China Sea, we should engage. In fact, when I assumed the chairmanship of ASEAN, I would call for ASEAN countries to take a common position so that multilaterally we can engage with our neighbors, including China, to find an amicable resolution to the differences. So I take that position. We are fiercely neutral. Nobody, no country should dictate. And we decide what is best for our country. We accept it is a relatively small country, an emerging economy, and now vibrant, be able to attract investments and trade. So we do not need to, therefore, be part of any interest or I see the Cold War mindset, but instead take this new position, New Asia, into consideration.
Thank you, Your Excellency. So, in the context, Asia and the world is now watching the U.S. presidential election in November. So, if President Trump is going to re-emerge as a president, he's going to meet a very hard-lining approach to China. So after the U.S. election in November, the United States, from the Asian perspective, what are the expectations or the concern that we do have after the U.S. election? Do you have any that you can share with us?
Of course, a number of countries, not only in Asia, or in Europe, I was in the Middle East, people are a bit concerned about the exhortations and of the candidates, which includes Donald Trump. We hope that therefore he would be able to shape, in the event he wins the elections, he takes a position that is an important player in the at the international stage, and therefore take into consideration the need for peace, security, and economic development. Now, having said that, well, you alluded to the issues that of concern, yes. Having said that, I'm back to my original focus. What is it? That we have therefore to build this cohesive ASEAN, enhance our trade, solidify our strength, and then collaborate with the countries in the region and with other friendly countries. And I think our imperative is still, well, although this moral imperative cannot be denied, we talk about humanitarian concerns, about justice, about equality, but economic imperative should be the focus. And I think the United States, whatever said and done, would also require international cooperation, because that would eventually help the economic development of the United States. But the United States, like China, is a huge country. It's not a monolith. I mean, you have weaknesses here, they can rebound elsewhere. You know, I don't share the view that it's going to decline economically. I mean, it has a robust economy, it has its strength, technological strength, AI, etc. But there's no way any country, for that matter, can ignore the importance of globalization, international trade. And we just hope that both either Biden or Trump would accept these new realities. It's not United States in the 50s or in the 60s or in the 70s. It's the United States in the 2020s. And things have changed. They have seismic shift in the global power play. More countries are exercising their more independent view, other than being part of a Cold War sort of a grouping.
Thank you very much. So one more, I think, question I would like to ask is regarding China. South China Sea, centered around the South China Sea issue, the expansionism, hegemony in China is getting quite strong. And 2 years ago, China is now seeing a decline in population. So they are now in a structural sort of a recession that is being told. So China, in terms of expanding their presence, at the same time, the little sluggishness in the growth economically, how would that impact the region overall in your country?
Is particularly the huge economies, major economies, from historical antecedents. United States was in a period of decline, rebound, decline a little, sluggish a little, rebound a lot. So this would happen, of course, to China, because the ingenuity of the people, the preparedness of the leadership to adjust to what is critical for their country. And I think I don't need to underestimate that. You see Japan in the same light. So I would see that it's not a structural recession. Yes, there is sluggishness, there are problems they have to deal with, but it's still robust. They are still aggressive in terms of the foreign investments, including to Malaysia and ASEAN. And I therefore I'm not too particularly concerned about the talk about structural recession. About the issue of slight declining, you are talking about 1.2, 1.4 billion, slight decrease in population. I don't think you should worry anyone. I would say that it's something that we welcome. I think most countries which are overpopulated should slowly decline in their population, but I fail to understand why people are overly concerned about it. I mean, Japan has gone through that. people have said Japan as Vogel's, Japan is number one, and probably number 2, number 3, we'll come back to number 2. I mean, it depends on how we steer, navigate our economies. And if in that case, China should be able to navigate and make the necessary adjustments. Right now, it is somewhat sluggish, yes, but it's far from a structural recession.
So South China Sea. Now China is still expanding. What do you think of their expansionist view?
Well, this is of course the perception that we receive. Now, without prejudice, without being either pro or anti or China, we in Malaysia do not have this problem. Yes, there are claims, yes, but we negotiate. As I said, and I would reiterate this point, with all our neighbors we have some problems, minor problems, with Singapore, with Thailand, but we have excellent relations. In fact, relations with our neighbors are much better now than ever before. But do we resolve all the issues of conflicts? No. I mean, similarly, with Japan, we may have some differences in policies, but my relations, personal relations with Prime Minister Kishida and Japan, I mean, to me, we're trying to do better than ever before. Similarly with China, yes, there are claims, but resolution must be on a multilateral basis, must be based on UNCLOS. We made very clear there's no compromise when it's over of national integrity, territorial integrity of our country, and there is no way we're going to concede in any way, although we can be considered a small country. But please be assured that I personally, all my years, contact, which is getting closer also in our bilateral relations with China, have not encountered a single sort of problem vis-a-vis the issue of this conflict. This was raised, and we communicate, issues that we agree and we disagree, but we will have to deal with it. We have to have, again, multilateral mechanisms, and I said earlier that once I assume the chairmanship ASEAN, I would want ASEAN to be more cohesive in taking a common position, to engage with America as a great friend and ally, with Japan, Korea, and more so with China as a major economy. So we take this more neutral, at the same time focusing on the economic imperative. Yes, there are differences, but they must use all the international mechanisms, multilateral mechanisms, and UNCLOS to resolve specifically on the issues of the South China Sea.
Thank you very much. There are so many other questions, but I think that it has come to the time. So, Prime Minister Anwar, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
They are difficult questions.
Very, very impressive. Yeah, thanks so much.